The stage lights felt blinding, but the boy's shirt was faded, his shoes scuffed. Whispers moved through the crowd. He looks nervous. Will he even last a minute? Yet when he held the mic, his trembling hand spoke louder than words. He closed his eyes, and suddenly, silence wrapped the hall. Then came the first note. A raw, unpolished voice, fragile yet powerful, slicing straight through the air. It wasn't polished like trained singers, but it carried something rare, truth. Every lyric of Hotel California seemed carved from his own struggles, hunger, sleepless nights, and the weight of a father who never returned home. The judges leaned forward, stunned. Some covered their mouths. In the crowd, an elderly janitor paused mid-step, tears gathering as if he recognized himself in the boy's song. By the time the chorus swelled, no one was whispering anymore. They were frozen, listening to pain transformed into beauty. It was no longer just a performance, it was confession, memory, and magic. The boy sang like he wasn't singing for applause, but for survival. And as the last note echoed, the hall erupted, not in pity, but in thunderous awe. Backstage, the boy avoided the cameras. He slipped to the corner, hugging his guitar case. To him, it wasn't victory, it was relief. Music was all he had left of his mother, who once sang lullabies between double shifts. He remembered her whisper, "Sing, my son. Even the poor have a voice." But while applause still shook the hall, some doubted. A producer whispered, "Was it a fluke? One-hit emotion?" Others saw only a ragged shirt, not the heart behind it. Yet, when the boy walked out, fans approached not with screams, but with soft eyes. A little girl tugged his sleeve, saying, "You made my daddy cry." He never cries. The boy knelt, speechless, realizing music had done what words never could, broken walls of pride and pain. At that moment, his worn-out shoes didn't matter. His trembling didn't matter. What mattered was the truth people felt. But fate had one more test. His name wasn't called in the semi-finalists. Gasps filled the air. The boy smiled weakly, bowed, and walked off stage. He thought his moment was gone, yet destiny had just begun writing the real story. Weeks passed. The boy returned to his small street corner, guitar in hand. Life went on, coins dropped into his case, sometimes ignored, sometimes pitted. But now, strangers lingered longer. They whispered, "Isn't that the boy who sang Hotel California?" One afternoon, a man in a suit stopped. He watched silently, then placed a folded note inside the case instead of money. The boy opened it later. "Your song saved me from giving up. Keep singing. Don't disappear." Tears blurred his vision as he clutched the paper tighter than any bill. That night, he walked past a cafe, and inside, he saw the same judges who once doubted him. They didn't recognize him in his ragged clothes, but the boy kept singing outside, his voice cutting through the glass like a prayer. Customers inside began leaving their meals to gather by the window. When the song ended, the judge stepped out, trembling. "Son, do you know what you just did? You made strangers forget their troubles for a moment. That's not losing, that's winning." For the first time, the boy realized his gift wasn't meant for trophies. It was meant for hearts. Months later came graduation day at a local school. The boy wasn't graduating, he couldn't afford tuition, but he had been invited to sing for those who were. Nervously, he took the mic, clutching his guitar, facing parents in suits and children in bright gowns. At first, whispers returned, "Why him?" But then the chords rang out, and his voice filled the hall once again. He didn't sing for glory, he sang for the mothers working overtime, for fathers who never returned, for children who feared they weren't enough. As he sang, a teacher wiped tears. A mother pressed her hand to her chest. Even the headmaster stood silently, moved. And when the final note faded, the room rose in a standing ovation, an honor rarely given, but freely earned. Afterward, a grandmother approached. She pressed a small medal into his hand. "This belonged to my husband. He was a soldier who believed music could heal broken spirits. Today, you proved him right." The boy bowed, his voice breaking, "I am no hero. I only sang what was inside me." But everyone there knew, it wasn't just a song. It was a legacy, reborn through sacrifice. Years later, the boy stood on a grand stage, not in rags, but in a simple suit. His hair was grayer, his hands steadier. The crowd was massive, yet he smiled with the same humility of the boy who once sang barefoot. Before singing, he shared, "Once, I thought losing a contest ended my story. But I learned, life's stage is not about trophies, but the lives we touch." He strummed the opening chords of Hotel California. The hall went silent, the same silence that once held him years ago. But this time, the sound carried more than pain, it carried survival, healing, and hope. In the front row sat the little girl he once moved to tears, now grown, holding her own child. The elderly janitor was there too, smiling proudly. Even the old judge, now frail, stood to honor him. When the final note soared, the applause was deafening. But the boy, now a man, looked upward, whispering to his late mother, "Your voice lives through mine." And just like that, a poor boy's raw voice, once doubted, had turned into timeless magic. A legacy of humility, sacrifice, and love that no stage could ever contain.